Yesterday they did it in game 1, and that's how we got the Ube strategy that fell apart really quickly. But GameLab starts it off with a Johnson ban. This is something that we have not seen against a team like EVO and against them, of all things.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Johnson here, a majority of teams across the region, they do tend to lean on banning it against a Cambodian team just because of how many seasons of MPL they have kind of played it around the composition, especially when IMPUNITY kind of brought it up, won MPL, and then still brought it up in MSC, and yada yada. So it's understandable, but I think it's just that much difficult to deal with in the right hands of the player. You just don't want to take a risk. It's kind of like a Fanny thing, right? Yeah. Not many people can play a pretty good Fanny, but a fairly decent one who knows how to play it can just completely destroy your game. So I think why not just take the risk and just ban it off? Not take the risk and just ban it out.
It's kind of like a more specific ban, right?
Yeah.
And then Kaja ban, that one is very understandable. Zanri does play that Kaja a lot. EVO also with a less common opening ban, right? It's the Moskov. It's a hero that yesterday I believe we saw once. You were not too big of a fan of Moskov, and understandably why, because that game ended up in a loss for Moskov overall. But these 3 bans are pretty out of place so far.
Well, if you're playing a Moskov in possibly Magic Chess, I can understand why. You know, it's just annoying for a 2 value coin to be jumping around doing so much damage in early stage of the game. I get it. Magic Chess, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
But in terms of ranked games, I don't think so. It's a little bit skeptical as well. It's great for chaining CCs in here and there, but aside from that, I don't think they're going for it. But at the same time, seeing how they kind of had a matchup against a Moskov / Grok, it's understandable that they don't want to potentially risk it, maybe expecting GameLab to actually bring up a Grok first pick to a certain degree. But based on the drafts here, I think there are a lot of meta picks that is pretty much let off the hook.
Oh, yeah.
Martis is being one of them as well. 1-1 is completely ignored. I
There's
think
like Fredrin, Carry.
Fredrin is also there, carries in the pool as well. So EVO Esports, they've got to pick the poison here. Is it going to be the Valentina? I feel like Valentina is just too much of a risk to let it go. But Glue is also another exception as well. Yeah. So there's just too many up in the opens right now.
This is where we look at the rock, paper, scissors formula, right? If you pick Eve, I'll take Valentina. It's kind of like with the red pill or the blue pill. Though I think that, judging from what GameLab has been banning, it seems like a lot of focus is being put onto Zanri, right? To get him off some of these heroes. I still think Kaja is probably the one with the biggest value. Farmis and Johnson, not too much.
Yeah.
That means that I think Zanri still has decent options, but for EVO, they decided they don't want to deal with the 1-1. Now we get to see what GameLab prioritizes.
I think the Faramis is understandable, considering that it is something that EVO Esports kind of lean onto as well based on yesterday's draft. But considering that if you're setting yourself for a glue pickup, banning off the Faramis isn't too bad if you think about it, just because of how its first skill kind of just does so much damage when the split's been formed, right? But GameLab, they just open up the first pick Joy, pretty standard coming from them. EVO Esports will get potential 2 power picks. Maybe the Glue, maybe even a potential Martis, but I think they do want to lean on the Eve or Valentina a little bit more for EVO Esports.
And I think if EVO Esports, I feel like a safer opening for these first 2 picks feels like the Valentina would be a more decent option just because it's kind of a soft response to an Eve, right? If GameLab go for it. But at the same time, I think the Joy pick might make that glue less desirable because you don't really get to stick on that Joy anyways. EVO Esports is going to take a longer time trying to figure out what they want to go for. I think the Brody and the Fredrin will be the response.
Okay.
Decent. I guess it's a decent answer to the Joy. You have ways to stop her in these fights.
Okay, I can see the Fredrin for sure. Not too sure about the Brody, maybe just because of the fact that they're expecting maybe a potential Fanny, which I think if you put it from that perspective, right, Brody is a great way to deal with Fanny when Fanny dives in. You have this auto skill, just completely stuns him and just gets out of safety, right? Similar to Joy as well. I guess that's the idea that EVO Esports is drafting around it. They want to keep their options open for their potential jungler, flex it up a little bit more, maybe get a Martis, maybe even get Kadita if they want to, which I don't think isn't that too bad. But Farsa being picked up, Cho also being picked up from side of GameLab. I guess the Cho pickup was a little bit forced, expecting that there are still some teams that play a Cho to deal with a Feather Airstrike. So this is a pretty much an easy Valentina pickup for EVO Esports if they want to go for it.
Yeah, it's Valentina. I think the Yuzhong is now looks to be a juicy second phase pick, right? You still can put Fredrin in jungle and have that Yuzhong completely disrupting this Farsa. But I think the 3 picks so far does make the Fredrin's life a bit more complicated, right? You have so many ways to keep him in place or to displace him. Whenever he presses the ultimate, you get a kickoff and suddenly Fredrin becomes so much less effective in these team fights. And I do like GameLab's approach thus far. You know, Brody also doesn't like to be kind of juggled around in these fights. I mean, GameLab's opening draft is very, very appealing to me, and Valentina comes through for EVO.
Yeah, it's pretty much a no-brainer as well. Just a free value Federal Airstrike just gives so much terrify, and it's very disruptive against the composition from GameLab, especially for a Joy, which is very time-sensitive in its skills itself. But EVO Esports, I think the next idea they need to be opening up their pool here is going to be focusing on what Zanri is going to be playing to deal with all this, right?
Oh, yes.
How do they get dive backlines, right? Cho is a great way. Ruby is a pretty decent one as well. Kufra is not really the greatest, but considering that he has demonstrated that he can play a Kufra and it's a great way to deal with the Joy, I wouldn't be surprised that Kufra should be banned here for GameLab if they've done their homework. If they've done their homework. Franco isn't too bad as well. The Bloody Hunt does kind of lock down the Joy's mobilities, and it's understandable why they want to take it out of the equation. So EVO Esports, they will only need to focus on just banning of junglers, I guess.
I guess that's one way to approach it, right? I think the Hayabusa, there's the Ling, if they want to consider that as well. Though maybe this would give EVO Esports a consideration that you want to go for the Archive, potential Archive jungle once more. That is one of the ways to displace, you know, the Gameless draft with that heavy spin.
Oh, that good ban here.
That's the Ling. There we go.
Yeah, it's just not worth it as well. EVO Esports, they do like to lean on playing on a 5v5 composition rather than a 4-1 strategy, which we did kind of see the kind of flop in that department, right? There are teams that play with Benedetta, there are teams that play with Lings. Not every team is comfortable with this, but the Kufra being banned off from GameLab, Zanri will have to pivot away from a different composition. I think Ruby isn't too bad. Lolita doesn't exactly give you the value against a Joy to a certain degree. Diggy, I wouldn't say Diggy is the best, but it is still a very viable option to kind of make sure that this Fredrin doesn't get completely hard CC'd by the way of the dragon. So, but no, okay, Matilda's pretty good.
I was thinking of the Matilda as well.
I like it.
Right, you go down the hierarchy, 5 bans committed just towards Zanri. I think the Matilda makes perfect sense. Loving what EVO Esports brings. Now you have a way not just to start a fight, but you have a way to really keep GameLab away to a certain extent. But you know, you see GameLab kind of doubling down on just trying to access that backline to be in the thick of things. Alice will be that choice. We saw one Alice game yesterday, but that one didn't went well.
I think when it comes to Alice, right, Alice is in a very peculiar situation where it's not necessarily strong, but it's not necessarily weak, right? It's all about going with the right composition. And when it comes to Alice, you always want to try and dive the backlines. In this case, the backlines from side EVO Esports is going to be either the Brody, which I don't think is a big threat. So when you pair it with a big wombo combo of the Blazing Duet, that's going to be a completely different story. So I think GameLab, they really want to play around the choke spots of AoE damage control, whereas EVO Esports, all they got to do is just play ring around roses and just kite of a team fight. And having the Esmeralda isn't too bad as well. It's a way to benefit from the shields coming from Joy. So both have very, very, I would say, different perspective of their game plan. But I feel like EVO Esports has an easier composition to play compared to GameLab's composition right now.
And this is an XP lane Fredrin as well, right? I think most likely directly.
No, I think it's a jungle.
It's upper though. It's an upper Fredrin.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think we're looking at a jungle Esmeralda. Haven't seen that for a very, very long time. But EVO Esports just opting for the long fight against GameLab, right? To see who outlasts one another in those team fights. Very, very interesting though. I honestly do have the same sentiment with you. I thought that Esmeralda is going to be the XP response, but maybe they just want Fredrin to have a more stable presence in that XP lane.
Well, they might be flexing it out. I'm curious to see how it goes, but without further ado, we're going to be jumping straight into the game in the upper brackets match here. This is going to be game 1 between both GameLab versus EVO Esports. This is going to be the match that you guys are going to be excited as well. One of the top contenders in the entire tournament itself is going to be battling it out. But it seems like we're going to be starting off right here, right now. And it is going to be an Alice jungle coming in from Takanaga and a jungle Fredrin coming from EVO Esports.
Oh, so it's so in the end, okay, it's still jungle Fredrin. So probably swap it at the very last second. Now that makes a lot more sense, right? It does make I think that's kind of the direction that you and I expected them to go towards. Though GameLab, though, very early attempt Trying to disrupt this jungle. Unfortunately, they are outnumbered. Dogman getting a quick knockup and instantly backs off. No rewards from that.
Yeah, I was expecting maybe GameLab would have went for a Joy jungle over the Alice jungle, which is kind of questionable for me, right? I was expecting maybe Alice going for the XP would benefit him more, considering that he needs to sit in lane, build up stacks, as well as his farm level. So having this Alice jungle, it puzzles me a little bit more, because you're not going to get a lot of stacks from jungles, and it's weird. It's just weird for me in general.
Don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. Yesterday it was played in that mid lane, but I guess it does give you that objective control. Though with how Alice normally gets played, you want time, you want item. This doesn't really feel like GameLab is focusing a lot on that mid game.
Yeah, as you can see, Takanaga is gonna get harassed as well. He's jungling his way through, but he opted to waste a little bit more time to clear the minutes to build stacks, which kind of allows EVO Esports to actually just kind of rotate in, just going for the fight. But now with the Joy play coming from Havos,
oh my goodness,
and Flashron taking a little bit too much damage, but at the same time, it is an XP Joy. He doesn't necessarily have the damage output in the early stage, but it seems like he's actually building towards the magical damage department in the early stage. Maybe a genius one from the get-go. Turtle now being contested from both sides. GameLab already in position to do so. They've got the AoEs to do so. Better effort trying to zone them up, and they will secure the Turtle in their favor. And at expense, they will take down Your Name in the process with this Alice, and it's somehow working out in their favor.
Yeah, Your Name tried to get in completely crowd control. That's one of the banes of Fredrin. You stand there and you eat that feather airstrike. It's a absolute disaster for this Fredrin. And you know, at the same time, Matilda and Zanri was on the other side of the pit. No backup coming from EVO Esports. A bit of a kind of a disjointed attempt at the turtle, but good start for GameLab.
Yeah, and so far, that was something I didn't expect as well. I think I didn't bring up the fact that they've got so much crowd control in AoE damage output, right? But at the same time, I just didn't understand what EVO Esports was thinking about, right? They could not force a fight, knowing that they need at least X amount of items, and they've already pretty much lost Valentina from the get-go, and they still tried to force a fight in Turtle, which was something that kind of puzzles me a little bit here. Why would you force a fight when you're a man down and just give a body for no apparent reason? So I think GameLab took a very, very good advantage of this situation. They preemptively dropped massive ultimates, which is logically, it's one of the worst plays possible. You kind of want to save up to try and set it up for the right moment, but knowing that there is no Valentina around, preemptively sending it out just completely scares them off. And I think they're playing a different aspect of the game from what normal Mobile Legends game that I'm used to seeing here. There is a lot of psychological factor being put into this gameplay coming from GameLab, which is something I'm really surprised that this actually happened. A lot of preemptive spells being used out to zone them out.
And I think that also kind of makes me a bit worried for this jungle Fredrin, right? In a lot of these situations, there are targets you can't really catch, like the Joy, but at the same time, you can't really stand in the fight for too long. There is a plethora of magical damage from Alice, the Fasa, like you pointed out just now. Joy is going magic damage as well. Does raise a concern for a hero like Fredrin, where you are forced to stand there and take those bursts.
Yeah,
can get pretty tough.
I think it's the difficult part about building the items right now is that they need to at least have a Radiant Armor or / Oracle or Athena Shield. Like, most importantly, you need that initial Radiant Armor first before they can actually engage a fight against GameLab. And on top of it all, while you need that, you need a Dominance Eyes, not because it's against magic, but it's because it's counter regen, which is something that I think is very difficult to build on a Fredrin, considering that you need like those Sky Garden helmets, you don't need those Curse helmets. So there's a lot of work that I think EVO Esports needs to have before they can actually take a full-fledged fight against GameLab. So this is going to put GameLab in a very good position. They were able to harass the Alice, but I think this early stage of the game, I did not expect the Alice to be so annoyingly hard to kill.
Yeah,
which is weird.
I think it's fair that EVO Esports actually didn't have much damage. I mean, if you look at the department that they had, minus the Valentina, Brody isn't exactly in fighting shape 2 minutes in. It's Fredrin, Matilda, they're just not good candidates to contest against GameLab.
It's tough, you know. It's really tough to see what's the win condition right now for EVO, considering that they made a little bit small blunder. All they gotta do is just buy time. And if you talk about buying time, how long can they buy? Because a Brody in the ultra later stage of the game is not necessarily the strongest compared to a Claude. So Brody shines in pre-8 or level 8 at his most when he actually joins the fight. And in this case, I think GameLab might actually consider just wrapping out the game before it actually hits that stage here. And with this small lead, EVO Esports now, they are going to play a little bit more defensive to make sure that your name gets his buff instead.
It's fair to say that if this game drags out late enough, it's still kind of a GameLab favorite match when we hit that, you know, beyond 12-minute mark.
Yeah, it's a little bit they have to wait for this, I guess. But based on itemizations here, we do see an early potential steal licks coming in from Zanri, Molten Essence coming from Fredrin. Esmeralda is going to go for the Enchanted Talisman build, but on the bottom lane, EVO Esports, they're going to get dived in by GameLab, but unfortunately, they just don't have the tools to actually dive them. Considering that GameLab needs EVO Esports to actually dive onto them to counter-engage, and that's the strength where GameLab has, right? Their initiation may not necessarily be the strongest. They have to rely solely on Takanaga to actually start this fight with his Alice, which oftentimes very easily dodgeable with his first skill.
Yeah. And at the same time, the jungler is a level ahead, right? Aizawa is... Oh, not Aizawa, excuse me. Takanaga, he is one level ahead of your name. And Dogman is just constantly scouting that bottom lane, so you are not only forcing Biston away, but you're also taking control of that bot side. Silver lining though, that turtle is spawning on that top side as well, so EVO Esports, they get to reset this one, but you know, under 10 seconds until the next objective spawns, EVO Esports, they're struggling to gain control of that turtle pit. And even if they do, again, we are looking at the damage department which they lack.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one, but seeing how the second turret is going to be up for grabs as well, once again, EVO Esports at a deficit, still wants to try to force a fight, potentially go for the retribution, but Flash 1 steals the Phantom Airstrike, Tyson turns away, and they actually did not get it. So that's going to be GameLab trying to flex their way with those turtles here. And pure damage coming from Takanaga, re-engage, trying to force your name out. He's going to try and make a run for it, however, he does have the sustains, and this time, GameLabs, they have to back out. Takanaga trying to hold on for his dear life. He's got his buddy in this process, but they have to back out. Her boss also bullied out by Opera, and this is the level 8 timings that EVO Esports is finally going to be kicking in. However, they just did not get any single kills in these skirmishes.
Yeah, very split skirmish, but you know, it was very crucial for Opera to zone out her ball, and an ambush set up in the jungle. Your Name tries to save his buddy. Zanri does use that ultimate, heals up just for a bit, but not for long. Double kill for Takanaga. Best case scenario for GameLab. Maybe Oppa can get an exchange, but Dogman, he is a bit tanky. Flash one shows up, instantly rooted down by Takanaga, and Habok also shows up. EVO Esports cannot get anything done.
My goodness, what a setup coming from GameLab as well. They set up an ambush to punish EVO Esports just like that. And on the bottom lane as well, they picked off Biston. That is a huge pickoff coming from GameLab as they try and pull on in the medal. However, IDN now, EVO Esports is in a very, very difficult position. Their combat mechanics solely depends on maybe the Esmeralda coming up online, and I think right now he does have enough items. He's building up to his dominance eyes, he's building up to his potential Oracle, and that's where he matters most. And for how long can this drag this on? Because GameLab, they're just going ham right now.
Tough game for Flash Run. Just only got that Clock of Destiny, so behind in gold, just around 500 behind Aizawa. 4-0 so far for GameLab, but man, you look at that goal deficit, it is 4,000. Close to 4,000.
That's huge. When the junglers just completely destroy the other jungler, in this case Fredrin, not being able to get the efficient farm that he needs, this is not looking good for EVO Esports. Third turtle is going to be out for grabs. EVO Esports has no choice but to concede this time. They've lost not once but twice now. Radiant Armor purchase up on Dogman is going to help deal with the potential Farsa out being stolen by Flash One, but now EVO Esports, they have to retreat. You can see the catches are coming in. Your Name is there, going to be going for harassments. However, he might be taking a little bit too much, but at the same time, you can start to see that EVO Esports is starting to adapt to this Alice, which is lack of a lot of stacks here. Meanwhile, Xbox as well, also a very difficult contender to actually peel off as well. Now, for the Cake Dogman, is he gonna go for the jump? I don't think that he should. He's gonna back out instead.
Habok just took 0 damage from that. Had to use the Vengeance in that exchange, but that one is coming up in less than a minute. GameLab able to cut that wave between the tier 1, tier 2 turret up top, so that means tier 1 is secured. They are really trying to get something, but Habok, not the easiest target to catch up though. It is a Joy. Those infinite dash is going to cause a lot of problems. That an airstrike into a Joy running around, just bulldozing into a Piston. They're all dying across the map. 3 going down from EVO Esports, and ALVA trying to keep the dream alive. Does have that shield up, but it's against 3 members of GameLab. Aizawa just poking and prodding from afar. ALVA looking for a pickup, finally finds him. Is now Dogman and the both trying to close out this kill. ALVA still staying alive, but they're losing map control. I mean, GameLab are working the top lane, tier 2 going down. ALVA still going, her ball able to survive. ALVA looking for the kill, can't find it. Dogman and her ball both running away, but ALVA, he is so desperate for something. Just out of range, Dogman finds him, gets the kick.
He might die.
Backwards, ALVA still healing up.
No way.
Loses that fight, play like a fiddle.
Oh my goodness, ALVA, he got so desperate with that play. GameLab completely outplayed it by an inch. It could have gone either or, but ALVA definitely the saving grace for EVO Esports. Bought so much space for the team, but at the same time,
they lost all tier 2.
Space worth it? Because as of yet, his teammates could not capitalize on it. And meanwhile, GameLab just dominating on all fronts. Now Havos gonna be going for the flank as well as they dive the backlines. Matilda Zanri just keeping your name alive. But no, the catch coming from Dokkamon is gonna take him out, and that's gonna be another pick-off as well with the Way of the Dragon. EVO Esports, no response whatsoever.
Just what a clean game of Mobile Legends thus far. 9 minutes in, that Lord is pretty much secured by GameLab. All tier 2 going down simultaneously almost. EVO Esports basically locked in their base at this point.
Oof, this is very, very difficult to see for EVO Esports to actually go down. GameLab, however, full map control. They know they've got to finish this game as quickly as they can, knowing that EVO Esports will start to develop the resistance to actually tank through all this damage. Of course, now kind of out of control as well. They've got the Feather Airstrike. It almost chips down to Valentina. But as of yet, EVO Esports, they've just got so much to worry about as of now. With GameLab having the Lord knocking in the middle lane and tower, EVO Esports might need to throw bodies for this defense.
I honestly think they need to do so. I mean, GameLab is in their base. Takinaga is in, still killing up as the Lord pummels that mid inhibitor. Takinaga now locked down, suppressed. Does have the invulnerability for a while. They want to take Takinaga down, but it took forever. Yuktizi in with that ultimate. 1 member down from the side of EVO Esports, and that is ALVA out of the picture. The Lord now pummeling on that crystal. Piston barely gets away. GameLab wants to do some damage. Your name in thick of things, and now the counter engage comes in for EVO Esports. Her bow is out. Dokman is also done. Yuktizi is just in the face of Piston. Gets the kill, gets out. Zanri dashes forward, finds the shutdown, but damage is done. GameLab gets out with 3.
That should not have happened, but EVO Esports manages to hold on. GameLab using Takinaga as a bait. EVO Esports almost committed to that fight, but as soon as the Blazing Duet came in, everyone from EVO Esports scattered, resettled, and re-engaged the fight, prolonged it long enough to hold on for their dear lives. However, they are still at a 6k deficit. Radiant Armor purchase up on your name has significantly helped a lot with the dominant side to try and reduce Takanaga's power spike. However, now seems like the engagement comes in as well as her boss doing a lot more damage with this Joy, but it's slowly going to be diminishing over time because of the dominance by Ice as well as the Radiant Armor's effects coming from EVO Esports.
And Piston couldn't find an opening in these fights, right? Wants to get a stack off, but they just dive in now. Flash Will, the Dragon is going to be backwards to the fountain for Zanri unless he gets out. Yes, he does, right on time, and now the taunt comes through. Takinaga in the forefront. Bursted by Piston. Habok not able to provide any assistance. EVO Esports once more hold on.
This is crazy, crazy attempts as well. Great flicker engagement coming from Dogman. However, it was a little bit too risky, but Takanaga, this is the problem with Alice, right? You need to build out the stacks as much as you can because it does gives you a little bit more XP, more power spike in terms of mobility as well. And EVO Esports knows for a fact that as long as this Alice is not in the lane soaking up those stacks, it is going to be very difficult. And it's very similar to Cecilia to a certain degree. However, they are going to have a boss try and buy time for this, but EVO Esports, they're able to hold on and they won't get a pick off right from the get-go. However, down on the bottom side, this is go time for GameLab to actually break the crystal, but no, they back out instead. They did not know that no one's home.
No minion wave, but they did get the bot inhibitor though, so all things considered, still good trade for GameLab. They have to give up her books in the process, so 15 seconds. Before Habok is back by the airstrike. Biston brought down low already. EVO Esports looking to jostle for position at the Lord, but GameLab, they started it up. They don't even need Habok to be in the equation if EVO Esports can't get near. Yuktizzy, he's just in the forefront. Your Name engages with a taunt. Matilda, Zanri straight to the backline, but no retribution for the Lord. And ALVA, he's in too deep. 3 members of GameLab on top of him, and Yuktizzy just finds an easy kill. The Blazing Duet not connecting onto Biston, but Biston is in a very tough place. The torn apart memory does get the exchange. GameLab only got 1.
Well, EVO Esports, they're finally building up a little bit more sustainabilities with Zanri. However, with this next Lord coming in, if they can defend against this, they might have a potential comeback to this game. But GameLab, they've got to throw bodies for this, because as of yet, they cannot let this drag out any longer. Better Ezra comes in, harass Biston. He's going to go for a reset, but he is still technically alive. But they're throwing bodies for it, but it's going to be the Joy that finishes him off. They pull him back, they get the kill, and now the Crystals exposed. EVO Esports, they need to wrap this out. Do they focus on the Crystals? GameLab just picking off the players one by one. They're killing off all like flies. Double kill coming in from Takanaga as it continues with his assault. He's got the sustains. He's dragged it long enough, and now they're all 1 HP, but it doesn't matter. The Crystal is over, and GameLab takes game 1 against EVO Esports.
My hidden MVP, Dortmund, just that very last second in the thick of the fight, finds that flash roundhouse onto Biston of all people.